do I mean by terrorism? Terrorism is a word that people fight over. There's no consensus about what terrorism is. Notoriously, there are many, many definitions among scholars, just among scholars, dozens of different definitions. So it's a real issue of contention among scholars. But the way I think about it, for my purposes, for my research purposes, is basically political violence against non-combatants. By non-combatants, I mean ordinary people, civilians, people who are not armed, who are not fighting, who are not part of an armed conflict. They're not directly involved in an armed conflict. They're outside of it, living ordinary lives. But sometimes in conflicts, both domestic conflicts, civil wars, as well as in international wars, armed actors will decide to use violence of one type or another against these civilians, against these non-combatants. This is quite common, actually, sad to say, in many conflicts. And I'm trying to understand, why. What's the logic? What's the reasoning behind this choice of tactics? One can understand in a conflict armed actors fighting each other, a civil war, an international war. We think of warriors fighting each other, but why would you attack innocent people? Innocent in the sense of they're not involved in the conflict. They haven't made the decision to start a conflict. But evidently, there are reasons to attack such people, judging from the history of warfare. So that's the question that interests me. And so I define terrorism in that way. Again, political violence, meaning violence with a political goal, a political agenda, against these ordinary citizens. Now, the answer, there are a couple of answers, I think, a couple of answers to this question of why armed actors, whether they're states or rebels, would turn to this kind of violence, would use this particular strategy of violence. I think one answer is that these non-combatants, even though they're not directly involved in the conflict, they are indirectly involved in one way or another. They're indirectly supporting one side in the conflict. How are they supporting? One side? Well, they may support it politically. They may have voted for certain political leaders. They may lend political legitimacy to one side or the other. They may look to political leaders for policies, for goods and services. Ordinary people may also support a particular side in a conflict economically. Their economic activities and taxes make it possible for a state or for a movement to survive over time. And so these people, even though they're not directly involved in the conflict, they are valuable to one or another side in the conflict. And when they are valuable in that way, they can become targets of violence. The logic is we can indirectly defeat our enemy or hurt our enemy by attacking these people. It's a kind of indirect warfare, if you like. Terrorism is a kind of indirect warfare. You don't directly attack your enemy, which after all is dangerous and risky. It's a lot easier to attack unarmed civilians. But there is a payoff, and the payoff is you undermine your enemy by attacking these people who have some value to your enemy. So that's how I think of terrorism, and that's how I explain it.